All right, good evening. It is 6:01, and I'd like to call to order the Keizer Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting. It is August 13th, and we are here at the Keizer Civic Center. Second item to consider is the July minutes. Is there any motion on the minutes, please?
I move that we accept the minutes.
I'll second.
There's a motion to approve as presented in a second. Is there any further discussion?
There were a couple of amendments that we gave to Dawn before the start of the meeting. So I would like to motion that they are approved as amended. My name was misspelled. There was a wrong meeting time on there. Just a couple of little
Good with
things.
as amended. Okay, so a motion to approve as amended.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously, and I think we're all here. That's awesome. All right, so we do have appearance of interested citizens, and I think with the indulgence of the board, what I would like to do is go through our new old business, talk through our park stuff, and then get to the advisory vote. I should have probably talked to you guys about this, but my guess is they're probably here to talk about the potential change to the rules. Are we, what's that?
I mean, it looks like there's some people from the art commission.
You guys are here for, okay, so
So I don't know. if
who's
there's-
not here to talk about the potential rule changes?
All right. Okay.
Come on up, sir. What's your name?
Kevin Olson.
Mr. Olson, come on up, please. And if you would, please state your name and city of residence for the record.
Sure. Good evening. I'm here today because, to speak to you folks about Keizer City Rapids Dog Park and the posted rules at the dog park. And we have some issues there's an issue for the small dog side and the large dog side. And there's a sign on the small dog side that says small dogs only, but it's not defined what a small dog is. So those rules, per the officer that I spoke with who came down to the park today, said there's nothing this city can do because there is no definition of what a small dog is. The American Kennel Club defines a small dog as a dog weighing 44 pounds or less. I think that's a fairly good definition of a small dog. Like today, there were dogs there that were easily 100 pounds, and the owners of those dogs refused to move, I don't know why, but refused to move their dogs to the other side. It's a safety issue for our smaller dogs. We've had our dog attacked. It's only a 9-pound dog and cost $5,000 to get the dog through the vet. And it's safety for the dogs, and it's very expensive. So we'd like the city to consider posting the rules to what a small dog is, so the city, Keizer City Police Department can enforce the rules. Because as it is right now, the officer said there's absolutely nothing we can do. The person with the 120-pound dog or whatever thinks their dog is small. And because it's not defined, there's nothing that can be enforced. So we're asking the city to post rules along with what the American Kennel Club says a small dog is, so we can, for safety of our smaller dogs.
Okay.
Okay. Any follow-up questions for Mr. Olson?
I don't think so. I'm sorry that your dogs are having challenges with the big dogs.
That didn't happen. That happened on our road on Dearborn Avenue.
Okay.
But because of that thing that we've been through in the past, I'm very, alert to that type of thing. And it is for safety for the smaller dogs and to keep them away from bigger dogs because, dogs do things, obviously. And so if the city would be willing to make that change to the rules and post it, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Just a matter of changing the sign?
No.
No, we have to create an ordinance and
Yeah,
into
it has to go through all the stuff into city council. But we can push it along. But, yeah, no, I personally think we should have more dog parks.
Barbara, please.
It's not just one.
Thank you for bringing that concern
Yeah.
forward. Appreciate it. This is a concern I've heard before. This is not the first time.
Okay, yeah, that's what the police officer told me.
yeah.
It's not the first time it came up.
No, it's definitely not the first time it's come up. And we are in a weird place right now. You know, you try to get people to understand what small dog means and some people just don't care. So it would help, I suppose, from an enforcement standpoint, if we did have a little more clarity.
Thank you.
Can I ask what the process would be to do that, would look like?
It's hard for me to hear them up there, so I'm,
Sorry. I'm asking a question.
Oh,
of,
sorry.
like, oh, no worries, of what would we need to do to put, or even take action on something like that? So I was just looking at maybe Robert
Well,
or our.
I mean, if whoever talks about the meeting to city council, the next city council meeting brings it up, then it's in their, I mean, it was kind of like the Gold Star Family Memorial, you know, bringing it up then, and then it can be, then city council will know.
Well, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, but the board, in theory, could ask you all to come up with a staff recommendation on this. I mean, we don't necessarily have to have council promulgate any rule changes, right? For the parks rules?
I think that's correct. Or it could go, yeah, similar to how we're doing the ordinance change tonight.
Right.
I've
Mr. Lindsay.
seen, Chair Lloyd,
Please.
I've seen where, this has been done many different ways. Sometimes the liaison will go back and say, this is what the group asked for. You guys report all the time to the council, so you could put it in your report. Or this gentleman here could even put it in writing and have it go to the council and ask for that change. And then the council could direct staff to come up with something to bring forward to you guys for your review first. And then, so any of those is a good way to do it.
Or all of the above.
There you go.
I mean, I think, I definitely need, I think the kennel club, great. I think Mr. Owens, I think that, or also that comment is good. I think we'd want to look at that and have that as.
No, that's all I think I've said what I came in to ask for.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I think, yeah, I've seen it. It's frustrating. I mean, you can have 25 big dogs in there that behave themselves, then you get the one that's obnoxious and it just ruins it for everything, right? I mean, it's one of those things it happens and it really is not great. I mean, you get little dogs that, and stuff that get attacked. I mean, ours did, so I get it.
So like I said, I was having trouble hearing. You have a little bit of hearing problem. Is there anything that you can do to maybe change that sign?
So the sign specifically would have to be, so we have rules, parks rules. Okay?
Right.
And so either you could write a letter to city council and the parks report that happens at city council could say this was an item that came up.
Right.
And the city council could direct staff to come back with, presumptive language for a potential rule change. But it's not just something as simple as waving a wand and saying, hey, Robert, go change the sign. So we have to establish it in the parks rules because it has to become an enforceable action with our police department if there is a call. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, we're not gonna send cops down there and have them looking for big dogs, little dogs,
Right, I
right?
understand.
It's gonna be a reportable offense and somebody can come down. Now, whatever the fine or action enforceable by the police is subject to the type of rule and et cetera and so on. There's a whole bunch of fun, legal government stuff that has to happen there. But ultimately, there's a couple different things. I would certainly encourage you to consider writing a letter or coming to city council, the next city council meeting, to have a discussion on this. My expectation is that whomever from the Parks Board does the Parks Report will bring this up. At that point, the council could say, as I mentioned, okay, go back and come up with a plan for this.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for being
Thank you
here.
for coming down. We really appreciate it.
All right.
After all, a 150-pound dog is small compared to a grizzly.
Absolutely. And a 90-pound dog is small compared to a 150-pound dog. So yeah, no, it's all
Yeah.
relative.
All right, is there anybody else that doesn't want to talk about lights? Okay, so as I sort of talked through it, and with the board's consideration, what I'd like to do is move up the staff report on the advisory vote for parks regulations first, then we'll hear about that, and then we'll hear from folks in the audience, and then we'll talk about that, and then we'll go back to our parks reports. Any concerns on that, Robert? Mr. Lindsay?
Oh, no, thanks.
Parks members, any concerns on that?
Do we have to suspend the rules and take a vote and all that stuff?
Well, if you want to be,
By
I
consensus?
mean, it's,
Can we do it by unanimous consent?
yes,
Okay,
Yay.
do
so
it that way.
I'm asking for unanimous consent to move item 4B up to in front of 4A. And then to extend the appearance of interested citizens after the presentation of item 4B.
I, second that.
Well, it's unanimous consent,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's thumbs up, thumbs down. Everybody good? Gwen, you good with that? All right. By a thumbs up, Mr. Lindsay, it shows that we're pretty much good to go on that one.
Okay, excellent.
All right, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Lindsay, why don't you razzle dazzle us with all the fun things so the audience can hear it, and then we'll hear from the audience.
Okay, and so, Mr. Johnson, feel free to jump in whenever. I'll just kind of say that, our parks regulations currently did not account for these new artificial turf fields. And so, they're being made, they should be apparently good to go right near the end of September. And with those comes the giant lighting, artificial lighting. And of course, as the days get shorter, the lights have to come on a little bit earlier. I think one of the questions that these folks will have is how late do we want those to go on and for sports to take place out in those particular fields. The regulations also had to account for, at least how the use of the fields are gonna go. Right now, we have suspended or canceled our RFP process, so we tried to envision both being able to be controlled by either the scheduling by whatever management agreement that we have in place, we don't have that one yet, or as otherwise dealt with through the city of Keizer, and that looks like that might be a couple months worth. Not sure, so more to come on those things, but we've tried to account for that in these changes as well, so that they would be controlled, the activities out there could either be controlled by a management contract or by by the city of Keizer, so. And then finally, we just wanted to make sure that exclusive use would be potentially by that management or by Keizer, and then otherwise, the turf fields could be generally used by the public. And so unless they're in an exclusive use moment where there's a tournament or whatever scheduled, then they're open to the public. So those are the lion's share of the changes that we're offering. And I think the ones about the lighting probably are the ones that people want to talk about and which would have some flexibility. So just so you guys know, if it currently says maybe 10 PM, I think, that doesn't necessarily have to be that. You guys, if you all come together and figure out that 9 would be a more appropriate time, for instance, that might be something that you guys could amend and your advice, and then that could be sent up to the council to change the ordinance here. Just know that an ordinance takes 30 days.
To go into effect, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we're here now, to try to figure it out. So if you guys could come to some advice for the council, that would be really helpful. That way that we have a regulation in place to control these things for when we need them. So, I don't know if Mr. Johnson has anything to add?
No, the only thing I think I would add is just make sure we're keeping in mind, we're not just talking about the time the lights go out, it's also the time that people need to be out of the park. Thank you.
Well, and I guess if I add to that idea, lights going off at a very particular time versus activities closing, but then giving people a little bit of time to gather their belongings and leave is also a consideration, so.
Question. Go ahead. Okay, so in the parking lot, are there quote-unquote normal lighting? Is there normal parking lot lights?
I believe that will be phase 2,
Okay,
so I think that's coming.
right, because the great big giant blinding lights going off at a certain time and still having the parking lot lights on for 30 minutes after, so that people can use that ambient light to gather their belongings and get out of Dodge. would be,
Smart,
right.
yeah.
I mean, I think it's smart because it was my question,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I appreciate you.
That's taking ownership of your question, I love that.
Yeah. So, okay.
Mr. Johnson?
So two more pieces of information, just so everybody knows, is that we do have the option on these lights to put them into dim mode, and that usually says you have a short amount of time to pack up your stuff and leave.
Okay.
It's kind of the pre-warning to the people on the field saying time to go.
That's a good idea.
So we would absolutely program them to go into dim mode at whatever time to give them a warning. Also, the must-go lights that were installed are supposed to be, I have not witnessed it yet with my own eyes, but they're supposed to be some of the best lights to keep light pollution from traveling a long distance away. And the reason they're so tall is so they can shine straight down, and they have side guards on them that theoretically stop light from going off into a neighborhood.
Okay.
I cannot say that because I haven't witnessed it, but I've been told they are some of the best.
Okay. I mean, the other thing when it comes to this, I mean, lighting is one thing, but there's also the amplified sound of, you know, if it's a tournament, whatever it is, there's got to be a way to be heard. And that is even more disruptive than, I mean, after Keizer Fest this week, I know that amplified sound can be very disruptive.
But the city's noise ordinance is 10 o'clock, right?
But in the park.
Without a permit.
But in the park, it's 9,
Right.
so, Keizer Rapids, it's a 9 PM cutoff.
I believe that, as long as it's sanctioned activities, there are certain exceptions to that.
Right.
And so that also sort of comes to bear in this.
Okay, so without any further questions, I'd like to go to those that signed up to comment. First off, thank you for being here. Super excited to see folks here. I've been a planning commissioner for 7 years, and this is the second largest audience I've ever had. And what I'll also tell you is the biggest audience I had was on urban chickens. So I'm super excited to have this chat. First up is Carol Phipps. Please come on up, Carol. And you have 27 seconds specific. I'm just kidding.
Give or take 10.
Just all this in the time changed, okay.
And if you would be so kind, please state your name and city of residence for the record and tell us your thoughts, please.
Okay, is this on?
Yes.
My name is Carol Phipps, and I am on the board for the West Keizer Neighborhood Association, and our association covers the Keizer Rapids Park. And today, I'm here just to testify that we have some concern about the lights turning off at 10 o'clock. Everything that you've mentioned has all been something that has come up to us as people don't just leave immediately. Does that mean, because as it reads right now, it says play and activity, whatever, is done by 10 o'clock. So we know that when a sporting event is over, it takes at least 20 minutes for people to clear and pick up their stuff and to leave. And so with that, you've got noise and you've got, you know, if play is allowed to go till 10 o'clock because the lights are still on, then you will have people trying to find their car in the dark and getting hurt and tripping because they were told they could stay till 10 o'clock and play. So I just, as our neighborhood association, we would just like a little clarity maybe in that, you know, preferably we would like for play to end at 9 o'clock. And perhaps you said the lights can dim at 9. And that's giving the people 20 minutes, 30 minutes to clear out. I mean, I am not a huge soccer fan, so I don't know how much equipment is involved and what needs to be cleaned up, but I have a feeling it's probably pretty extensive. This would also prevent activities from going overtime. As we know, concerts tend to go overtime sometimes and things like that. And to me, it would give a reasonable amount of time for the park to be cleared by 9:30 at the latest. So that is the concern for the West Keizer. Also, I have a question. Is there going to be a loudspeaker or some kind of officiating going on as well?
I don't believe anybody is gonna be yelling goal.
Right, but you'll have whistling and the whistles and all of that and the score and, I don't know. I'm not a soccer fan, so I don't know. I'm just curious how much noise it's going to generate.
I don't recall from anything when the 2 or 3 meetings that we had on this, that there was any sort of amplified sound built into the park. Is that,
Yeah.
There isn't currently.
Yeah.
I should say this, it's still sort of an open book about all the types of sports that'll happen there.
Correct.
And some might want
Yeah.
to have amplification for
Right.
purposes
Like,
of announcing
don't they
or
have
something.
football, but the football field isn't lit, right? The other field's not lit.
And to answer your guys' earlier question and to address this, I did find specifically that amplified sound under the current code, it doesn't have to be amended. It goes till 9 PM unless permitted by
right?
Okay.
the director.
Okay,
So
which
that
would
is-
make
that is one of
sense that the
things.
game needs to be over by 9. I
Yeah,
mean, with,
yeah.
and the lights by,
And that could be a thing too, is where maybe all activities cease at a certain time, but then knowing that there's gonna be a little bit of, and then a hard no lights after this certain time.
Yeah.
And you can determine what that is.
right, right. Is there any way to, I'll make it quick. Is there any way too that maybe this can be, I mean, because nobody really knows what the lights are gonna be like and what the noise is gonna be like because they haven't really done it yet. So is there any way that we can say, come back in 3 months, 4 months and revisit it and decide, or is that just if
No, I
there's
think
not a
that's-
problem, then that doesn't get brought up, or if there is a problem, it gets brought up? Is that how that works?
Mr. Lindsay?
I could add one more piece of helpful information is, the way we have the Little League set up is they have extended hours for their season. So their extended hours are March 1 to October 31st. And in those, then they allow the park open until 11 PM on weekends. So there is a lot of ways to skin this cat. But I mean, the long and the short is, I think neighbors would probably want a more regulated expectation, not,
Yeah, I don't
up,
think,
down,
I don't
and
think
up.
those rules for Little League have been touched since before there was apartment complexes there. Like,
Yeah.
those are old rules.
And maybe that's another thing to revisit at some point too.
Well, the West Keizer Neighborhood Association supports the fields. I don't want to get the wrong idea. We totally are excited that they're here and that they're going to be used. It's just the noise and getting that under control that we're concerned about. And I think I was told I'm done.
No, you're
Yeah,
good.
you're good.
Okay, I was just going to say, I'm a Keizer, I live in the city, I guess is what I want to, resident, and,
Is that you,
I-
Counselor Kohler?
somebody's beeping me. Anyway, I live on a park, and so I know by living on a
Yeah.
park, there's noise. I mean, by living on a park, you know that you're gonna run into that. But I also know when you have a regulation that says things close at a certain time, guess what? That doesn't always happen. So that's why I'm,
Yeah, and I have some thoughts on that, and I'm glad you brought that up. So I'll share those thoughts after we get done here from folks.
okay,
but yeah,
thank you, appreciate it.
And thank you for Wes Keizer for being here. I mean,
Oh,
you know,
sure.
that was super important. So thank you. Dan Sayer, Sayre?
Must have win.
Going once, going twice. Mr. Brooks, come on up. And if you would, please state your name and the city of residence for the record and tell us what your thoughts are.
Steve Brooks, City of Keizer. I don't know if you guys received a copy of my letter that I sent today. Okay, so I'm not gonna rehash all of that stuff, right? You guys got the point. My concern is the same as Carol's, the light pollution. We don't know yet what those lights will actually do. So, I'll reserve, my judgment until then. But I hold the same concerns, as everyone else here. We live on the park. I don't know how many of you actually live on the park, right? So how many of you experience the noise pollution that comes with it? Understanding that living on a park, there are concessions you have to make, right? There's things that are gonna happen, activities are gonna happen. Like Carol said, I love having the park there, right? I use it on a regular basis. I love hearing the families playing in the park, that's all great stuff. What I didn't sign up for was giant lights in my skyline, right? I go out back, I look at the sunset going to the west on the corner of my property. It's a beautiful place. I got a little chair set up there. And right in that vision is that light. So again, I don't know until I see it what really that means. The other concern I have, I think, is just enforcement. You guys are saying that the park will close. I love the dim lights idea at 9. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a good concession. But how are you going to enforce those rules? I've been living on the park now for about 6 years-ish, and truth be told, a lot of the rules of the park aren't really enforced. Dog off leash all the time. People in the park on a regular basis, right? These are just things that happen. Our Keizer police cannot patrol the park all the time, right? I call them when there's what I would consider like gross things happening in the park, right? Like a gathering of people at midnight, fireworks going off on a Sunday, things like that. But I reserve those for those special occasions. Otherwise, I just kind of let people be people because they're not really doing anything to me. They're in the park after hours, sure. But what you're setting up here is an opportunity for people to just be in the park after hours for a long period of time with no enforcement. So I haven't really seen any plans or ideas from the greater body of work here on what that looks like. Are you going to staff up? Are you going to invest in, say, a third-party security service to patrol the park? What does that look like, right? What are you inviting into the park by having just light availability to those hours? So, again, those are my main concerns.
Yeah. Nope, those are all well taken. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Questions or follow-up, Mr. Brooks? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kenyon, Chris Kenyon.
I was just here for observing.
Are you sure?
Yep.
All right, well, thanks for being here. Ruth Ann Fry?
I wasn't planning on talking, but I guess I.
You don't have to. I just had your name here, but you are more than welcome to. You can sing us a sonnet, interpret, dance, whatever you please.
Interpretive dance? I don't think so. You would not want to see that.
It's left to interpretation. You never know.
Ruth Ann Fry, I live right on the border of the park. Been there about 11 years, close to 12. Robert Johnson's been a good communication to have because when the bathrooms went up, they had lights and it was going right in my bedroom window and they put guards on it and now it goes straight down. And so it's great. It's not a bother anymore. We've had motorcycles, mini bikes, four-wheelers, cruising on the pathways at night at all hours because I wake up and I look out there what's going on. And even during the day and not just at night, but, or loose dogs, they like me, they like to jump on me. And I've had a fractured neck and surgery, and so I can't, it's hard for me to tolerate having dogs jump on me. That's beside the lights. But I appreciate the change in the park. It's been a change in attitude and mentality because it started out with filbert trees and privacy and deer and Stellar's Jay and all kinds of beautiful squirrels jumping from tree to tree. It was like a circus out there. It was wonderful. But now, with the kids playing, it's a whole nother environment. I love the laughter and what's going on and the fields opening up and to have more people come and participate and play. We need participation like that. I think it makes our life richer and more enjoyable. But I'm in agreement with 9 o'clock. Some of us are morning people and we go to bed earlier than others. I know there's night owls that like to stay up late and it doesn't bother them as much, but I would appreciate the 9 o'clock time. Let's see. One of the things it does, like at the amphitheater, a lot of times the music isn't too bad having the filbert orchard there, the little tiny mini one.
Yeah.
It has a tendency to muffle it a little bit, but it still echoes back and forth from the houses to the trees. So I know with the Keizer Fest, they can petition for special permits to have louder music other than, because the city has ordinances for festivals for certain decibels.
Yep.
And I found out a couple of years ago that they can petition to be louder than the ordinance. And so this year it didn't rattle my windows, but last year and the year before it did. So it was kind of crazy. So I always appreciate it. I know it's only 4 days and that's fine. I can tolerate that. No big deal there. But the lights and the noise, it'd be interesting. I like her idea of revisiting the ordinance, having it open like a probation period of time. So people can have input and see how it goes. Because who knows, maybe it'll be just fine. Not be a problem. Or it could be the other way around. You never know. So that's about all I have to say. Do you have any questions for me?
No, thank you for being here. Appreciate it very
Well,
much.
I'm glad to be here.
It's
Thank
nice
you.
to see you again. Usually I just see you at the park.
That's good to see you too.
Kim Steen, please.
Kim Steen, I'm a Keizer resident, and I also live on the park. Pretty much everybody before me has kind of addressed all my concerns. When I first saw the 10 o'clock, I kind of wondered why that time was picked. Knowing that, as my understanding that the park closes at dusk.
Right.
And so, as with everybody else, I love living on the park. I love the sound of people. I love hearing the kids play. I mean, I've also gone through having an orchard in my backyard to a path and just seeing all the changes, having the concerts, and, having Keizer Fest back there, I think is great. All these things are, 1 day a week or, 4 days a year but when I see on here till 10 o'clock, Monday through Saturday, all year, that seems, kind of excessive. And I did not know about the lights that they can dim and then just, kind of give people a little, I did have another question. Are there lights at the boat ramp? There's no lights there, so, because I don't see them. But there will be lights in the parking lot up at the road, which,
It sounds like in the second phase, right?
and will they stay on all?
Well, what I can say is, and maybe people didn't necessarily get this either, but the extended closing times are only, under this current
Just the
suggested code, is only for the artificial turf themselves.
Correct.
So all these other places will still close at dusk.
Right.
And I think it remains to be seen if we're getting certain grant funding for the second phase, but the second phase, I believe, is the phase that has all the lighting for the parking lot.
And what else is in the second phase?
Good question. More fencing? Oh, bathrooms, thank you.
Okay.
And then the building, right? No.
No,
just kidding.
is that the third phase, is the building of the supplies and maybe.
And will those
And then
parking
the paving
lots-
of the parking lot.
Will the parking lots, will they stay open? Will the lights be on all night? I mean, is that, because it seems like that would bring people in just, hanging out at the park.
I'm not sure. Maybe Mr. Johnson knows more than I do if there's a plan for that.
I have not heard of a plan, but parking lot lights can be both beneficial and,
Right.
cause problems. It might be that we just keep the ones out closest to the street on like a dim mode and everything on the interior closer to the field off so that it doesn't shine ambient light out onto the field, causing possible play. So it's something we need to take a look at as those get constructed to make sure that we're not causing ourselves more harm than good.
Was there a reason 10 o'clock was picked? I mean, was that just sort of,
Not really.
I could tell you sort of,
Yeah.
so we put this out to our executive leadership team, and really, Bill Lawyer was a huge, influence in some of this, and I think it was just asking people what they thought, but knowing that it would come through this process for, interaction with folks, and then also through the council process too, for more interaction. So you'll get your voices heard both here and then if you want to come to the council meeting, you can do that too, and make sure that your voices are heard there too. But, and they'll know because we have a liaison here. It's part of the process. 10 isn't a golden number by any stretch of the imagination. It's whatever you guys think is the best advice to give, because you're the advisory committee.
Councilor Kohler, do you have something?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. In some ways, the 10 o'clock was a compromise because the Little League Park is 11.
Right.
So there was some compromise there to begin with. So that just kind of let you know.
But there again, that's just a certain time of year and it's, limited
Right.
and it's
And-
not every night of the week and,
Thank you. And one of the questions that I would need to know an answer to is, do we know what other facilities are doing in the evenings for their lights and times? Because there are other facilities that we could probably reference and figure out, is there a need for it to be on at 10 o'clock? I don't know. Maybe not.
and would it be every night or is it on the weekends or, that kind of thing?
It's, well, and you've seen the current rules, these suggest Monday through Saturday.
Right, that's,
And I think part of this was trying to be flexible, not knowing if people had time slots they wanted to come, play in the park. So, because it's going to be a new toy, a new amenity for folks. So, and a nice one at that. So I think, I guess the balance is the service of making something is that it gets used. And so I think that's a question for you guys to balance.
Councilor Kohler, yeah.
Thank you, Chair, Lawyer. One other concern is that there's a possibility that there would be tournaments and other things on the weekends, which would mean maybe that some of the evenings our local teams would be playing. And so that's why I think what that rule was Monday through Saturday, and that way it would be possible to do that. Doesn't necessarily mean that it will be.
Right.
well, I'm in agreement with everybody else that 9 o'clock seems to be a pretty reasonable, I look back on school football games and things like that, and it seems like that's usually 9 o'clock or so. I don't know. Thank you for listening to me.
Thanks, Kim. Carolyn, please come forward.
These chairs don't roll very well. Carolyn Holman, Keizer. I don't live by the park. I live on Sunset. But I have a granddaughter who plays softball and tournaments go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for softball. I don't know about soccer. She also plays soccer, but not on a club team. So I think the potential here for 7 days a week is there. And I think 9 o'clock is reasonable for the folks who live on Tate and other close streets to the park. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of whistles, there's a lot of cheering and yelling, and cars coming and going. And I'm sure the people who get the management contract are gonna wanna make as much money as possible, because that's what they have tournaments for, to make money. And when you build it, they will come. So I think you really need to think long and hard about what the possibilities are. And if you can build in some sort of revisiting, to take into account what's happening, that would be great. And if there is a tournament, they can always get an exception if there's an exceptional tournament that turns up.
Yeah.
And I just think for the peace of the neighbors, 9 p.m. is practical. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. And Alan Marsh, I didn't see Alan. I'm sorry? Oh, Is it Ellen? I'm sorry, I misread that. I apologize. Please come forward. I said Alan. I just realized it was a he. I apologize.
I live on Tate, and Kim's my neighbor, and so I'm on the border of the park. And I submitted an email today, so
Yep,
I'm not
thank you.
gonna reread the whole thing. But, I agree with a lot of the points made. I like the idea of a probationary period, revisit after a few months to see if things need to be tweaked for the good of everyone. I agree with 9 o'clock. I actually would prefer 8, but 9 o'clock. Anything's better than 10 because all the points made already about how much time it takes people to leave. And also another point about enforcement, because as was noted, there's a lot of people already in the park, the unlit park after hours on motorcycles and everything else. We hear that all. So by bringing the lights and all that it's going to probably attract a lot more traffic. And how do you enforce people getting out when the closing time is supposed to be dusk? And now we're expanding it till 9, not 10, please. So anyway, that's it. I agree with all the points people are making. And I appreciate you letting us come and speak.
Absolutely. Is there any others, any reattacks? Anything that you heard and went, yep, I want to double down on that? No? Okay. So, what we have before us is a proposed rule change, and if you guys indulge me, I have a couple questions I'd like to ask Robert real quick, if you don't mind. No? Okay, so Robert, do we know if the lights are programmable?
Yes.
Okay. Do we know, can we ask the vendor if they could potentially do a light pollution study? And if they say yes, it'd be really good to see if we could get a light pollution study at like the nearest house on all 4 corners to the field and the furthest house and just kind of see what that potentially looks like. Is that something maybe we can ask him?
The ask could be made. I don't know if they'll be able to do it or not.
Okay. And then I have sort of a general question for everybody that lives on Tate. So, does it drive you nuts to have the lights on only if they're reserved into the evening and not on those nights that they're not? So for example, if like somebody says, hey, we need to use them till 9 o'clock, 9:30, 9:15, whatever, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but not Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, does that variation create anxiety for you?
Well, I'm kind of assuming it's not going to be every night anyways. I mean, maybe it will be, but.
Well, the only reason I asked that question is because the question that I had is, do we want to make the lights at that later time only when they're reserved for use? Is that the intent?
My intent would be exactly that, yes.
Only when use?
Because, well, a couple of reasons. We don't want to light the fields and encourage free play late. That's not being observed or, but also power costs.
Right.
Kind of wasting power at that point.
Well, and I'm just going to offer a personal anecdote. When I lived in Hawaii, we lived literally 110 yards from baseball fields, and they had 30-year-old sodium lights. And I can tell you right now, we never had light problems because of the direction they put in. There was no guards. They were aimed very specifically into the field. Now, you could very clearly see the field, but they didn't pollute over into our house. And our bedroom window was like dead on to that. And so with really bad old technology, I believe it's doable. I'm encouraged by what Robert said in terms of like the way they're going to shade them and have them pointed directly down. I think that's going to be really good. But I think if the vendor's willing to do a light study, I know that's outside the rules, but I think it'd just be something that'd be really cool to get some data back on.
I think that's only just part of it though.
Yeah.
The lights for sure, but.
If you want to speak, we need to make sure we get on the recording, Kim. I'm sorry. If you want to come forward, please.
Well, I mean, my thought is the lights are one thing, but it's just all the activity that it will bring.
Sure.
That, with the lights, so
Yeah.
that was all.
Okay.
That's half of it, I guess.
All right. Other questions for Robert or the city attorney? Lisa?
My only Okay, that's not true. The only thing I'm going to speak to tonight, not my only concern, is I know when they put in those bathrooms and they have them lit the entire night, that at first it's shown into people's bedrooms and it was, but when they put those, it still was a magnet to all of the kids who wanted to be in the park after night. You know, before they would drive in and they, you know, if they had cars, they would point their car lights, you know, and then they would, you know, play basketball or play on the big toy in the middle of the night because of that. But now they have this, the city is providing them light to go and be in the park after hours. The other thing is, it's hard to explain to people that they need to get out of the park at 4:30 in the winter when somebody else is able to be there until 10 just because they play sports ball when the rest of us, you know, just like to walk, and maybe we like to walk at dusk or even later. So it's hard to, you know, have that explaining to people, you know, because already people don't follow the rules, that they're riding electric bicycles or motorcycles or four-wheelers, doing all sorts of things in there. So anyway, that's just me.
Mr. Stitt.
Thank you, sir. I had a question that I hopefully our city attorney can answer. For phase 2, you talked about parking lot lights in Keizer Rapids. Is that the lighting placement? Will that be for the parking lots for the dog park, the big toy parking lot, and the parking lots by the boat ramp?
No, my understanding is it only is for these newer, that serve the artificial turf fields. So
Oh,
that
I
it's
see.
just the big gravel area that they've leveled out now. That will be where the lights go.
Okay, thank you. That clears things up.
Mr. Rushing.
And did that include the pickleball courts too?
No.
Can we kill his mic? You know you're not up that late, Clay. Quit pretending. All right, so I'm gonna make a comment and I'm gonna offer an option and see what y'all think about it. So we've been successful in this process because of good communication with the West Keizer Neighborhood Association. Okay, I think that there has been very robust conversation. I specifically sent an email to Rhonda because I absolutely thought it was necessary to make sure West Keizer was here. They are going to be probably the biggest advocates if we do this right, but they're also going to be potentially adversarial if we do this wrong. So I'm very appreciative that West Keizer is here and everybody that lives on tape, because you guys are all going to be experiencing this, right? And so thank you for being here. This feels like a public hearing, it's not. Mr. Lindsay, will there actually be an actual formal public hearing on this as it goes to an ordinance to the city council, is that correct?
Not a public hearing by definition, but a opportunity for public comment.
Okay. So if we get it wrong here tonight, then I would certainly encourage you to have a conversation with city council, but I think we've heard you. And so I'm going to offer an idea, and I want to see what my colleagues think about it on the board here. I would propose that all programming, meaning all practice and any games, are complete by 9 p.m. That lights are dimmed as early as 9:15 and shut off at 9:30. Only, in accordance with what Robert said, when they are reserved for purposes of play. Now, in terms of general use outside of reserved time frame, they still would fall under the general parks rules and close at dusk.
I think that's a great idea.
So I know we're not speaking to the substance of like part 5 here on page 28, but hopefully we can sort of synthesize that language. If that ends up being the ultimate recommendation of the board here, but I think that's I feel like that recommendation is responsive to a lot of what we've heard. I think the dimming specifically at 9 o'clock for that 15-minute window gets people the opportunity to grab their stuff, get out of there. Parking lot's empty, they're gone, lights are off no later than 9:30.
Do you want to hear from Tate?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to hear from Tate Avenue?
We did, thank you. And so, you know, as I mentioned, I think if we got it wrong, I would certainly encourage you to talk to city council, but that would mean like all the noise is like pretty, like there's no more, the game's wrapped, like 9 o'clock game's wrapped. And at that point, and we could even say maybe they start dimming the lights at like 9:05 and then lights out at 9:30. I mean, we can compromise on that a little bit if we think, but I'm just throwing that out there. It's not a motion, it's just an idea. And we can talk about it. I think we should talk about it.
How, my question is how could that would be enforceable? I mean, if somebody's having a
Oh,
game.
great.
And it's 9
No,
o'clock.
I actually have a note on that. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Thank you for bringing that up. So my note is if they reserve it, they're going to be paying a slot fee, right? Or whatever we want to call it. If they violate that rule, it's like we could set up a strike system. If they screw it up once, they get a warning. They screw it up twice, they basically lose privileges for X amount of time. I don't know. We could look at it, but
How about a fine?
I don't want to find them. I mean, we're talking, the whole point of this is to try to keep it, we're talking about young people and sports groups that don't have a lot of money, and I absolutely am not interested in finding kids that don't have a lot of money in their programs. Like, I'm just not interested in that personally. Now, y'all can make your own opinions on that, but can we do something like that? Is that, to create that accountability for the users. So if they violate it, first time's a warning, second time, they do not get any additional opportunity to reserve it in the evenings or something like that for a 6-month probationary period or whatever that looks like.
You could, the reality about enforcement is that it is, you know, we want to equally enforce matters.
Yep.
And it's probably going to have to fall on if we have
A complaint.
a strong management, you know, that,
Right.
that kind of is on top of it. I'm going to say if the city is taking charge at the very beginning, you know, then it's easier for us potentially to make sure that we're treating everybody the same and equally doing it and all of that. When you surrender to a different manager, if it comes to that, you know, we could potentially put whatever that is into the agreement, so they promise to do that, but then they're a contractor and it's on them to do it too,
Well,
if that
I'm
makes sense.
I'm gonna politely push back just a little bit. If we have John Smith's name on a request to use the fields till 9 o'clock, and they're there till 9:45, 10 o'clock, and there's a complaint, because that's how most of
Yeah.
these things are enforced on, then we go back to John and say, look, you did this wrong, no more. Does it again, then they surrender their ability to get it past in sort of these new rules. So, and I think that if the city is operating it, it's much more enforceable than it would be for potentially a outside management organization.
Yeah.
And regardless, whether it's an outside management organization or not, if it's an ordinance, it's still enforceable, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's law, and you can put a mechanism in it, enforcement
Right.
mechanism in there.
I mean, I just think it's, because again, if it's open to 9, then there's a name or an organization associated with that. And I think that makes the accountability and enforceability of it a little bit more practical than some knucklehead riding their e-scooter through the park at 11:30 at night,
Yeah.
right? Mike?
Robert, I had a question on the lighting. The lights are controlled by parks, right? So they wouldn't be controlled by the people using the field anyway.
Correct. We
So
will
we
be,
could have them set on a timer to shut off at a certain time.
correct.
So they're not gonna have a lot of say on how long they're gonna stay out on the field if the lights are
They'd be in the dark.
going off. Right. Okay, thank you.
I don't know, man, I've played football by headlight before.
I love playing softball at night, so
Oh,
I
it's
don't,
the
like, their
funnest,
fields
yeah.
are never around residential. It was out in like, Eastern Oregon area, but it's phenomenal. So I feel torn. I love playing sports in the evening, but I feel that there also could be a limit at 8 p.m. because people can come in and get a permit for those bigger things. So we could even go on the lesser side of setting a time limit at 8 for lights to be off, and then other people like, and opening it up Monday through, but it would be 7 days a week. But then those big organizations or big programs could come in and get whatever permitting. So we could even go on the lesser side of it, and then it does require them to jump a few more hoops to get, and then it maybe more communication about what the expectations are and different things like that. So it's another option as well.
I think in the beginning, you just gotta make it simple.
Right.
And see what it does, because we have no idea. And, all of a sudden, we wanna find people or make all these rules. I think we just gotta go with the flow in the beginning. And, they're changing the ordinance and everything. I don't even know if that's a good idea until after this thing gets rolling for a while, and then be able to really make some rules and see what's going on and see what the neighbors are doing and have them back. And everyone could, unfortunately, I hate to say it, they won't, but most people, hopefully will respect it. But there's always going to be the bad apples that are going to be out there until, we were all kids. We all hung out at Spong's Landing until wee hours of the night. We did things. That's just the way it was. But, okay, sorry, that's the way I was.
Now he's just tattling on himself.
Anyway, but I think it's early to start getting too complicated and all this, when the light's on off and who's coming and who's going and who's going to reserve it. And I think we just got to make it, in the beginning, it's going to have to be fairly simple, and then we're going to have to go with the flow as it gets rolling. Winter's going to be here before you know it, unfortunately, and that's going to change a lot. It gets dark at 4:30, and what time of year they play soccer? They play,
All year round.
Spring, fall.
It's year round though.
All year round.
so it'd be more football probably come winter months. And is that just a weekend thing? I don't know, but.
Well, I think, but yeah, the flexibility I think is great. But I also want to go back to what Mr. Lindsay said at the beginning is to change the rules takes minimum 30 days. So if we wait until this is done, then you're like middle of November-ish before anything could get put in place. So that does limit use exclusively in the fall until those rules were completed.
Because then they wouldn't.
And so I think if we can give it our best shot and then we get it wrong, maybe we need to revisit it. But I think because of that 30-day timeline, it does. I think I got the sense from the city attorney, there's a little bit of a sense of urgency to try to get this in place so that we do have something in place and then we can revisit it. Because we can always ask to revisit it basically anytime we want.
The RFP got held up, right, or canceled, so we're kind of starting over with that. So who knows when someone's going to come along and get this thing even running, team-wise, soccer stuff.
The city is trying to come up with a backup plan for the first few months, trying to schedule it a little bit. Because once the amenity is there, people will want to use it, and it will seem, like a squandered opportunity if it's just locked down and nobody gets to use it. So that's sort of the balance we're trying to strike here too, is we just wanted to know, and through a process where the public and the neighbors come out, what seems the most reasonable way to proceed with lighting. Because there are going to be tall lights. They'll be at a certain point, but, it'd be unfortunate if we didn't pick a time, just because then it would be completely random, so.
No, I think we need to pick a time. One night this time and one night 9:15 and we got a soccer that's reserved it, so now it's 10 or, I think we just got to make it the same across the board. That's my feeling.
You have a recommendation, Will?
Well, I like the 9 o'clock too. I don't live on the park, but I'm in bed at 9 o'clock. So if I did live on the park and I was in bed, there's going to be noise. It's like living on a golf course. You get hit with golf balls. You got to deal with it. But they were probably there before the park was there and turned into what it was. So, you know, my opinion is, yeah, 9 o'clock. I mean, I think that's more than fair, 10 o'clock. But, you know, I'm the old guy now, I'm in bed at 9, so, I think 9 is more than fair. It stays light till 10 in the summertime. So, you know, there's probably not even gonna be lights on at all.
Seems like even Keizer, like, just thinking of varsity football games, they usually end around 8:30 or 9, I think is when.
11 o'clock. I'm in the concessions till 11:30.
Really? But they start the games at 6:30.
No, they do not.
They used to.
No.
They moved it back.
There's times when the games don't start until 7:15.
Really?
And it's a
Trust me.
wintertime thing, though.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been plenty of times where I don't leave that field till 11 o'clock at night.
I don't know what season the soccer schedules are, I mean.
Clay?
So I'd like to make a recommendation that we do you want to call it a temporary position that we take, and I think it should be 9 o'clock. I think they dim at 9:15 and they're off at 9:30, and we'd come back and we'd revisit this in 90 days or 120 days or whatever we want to set, and I think everybody would be happy. Most people would be happy.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it should be temporary. I think we should set it at 9, and then, of
Well, we
course,
can't.
there's a change.
I don't think we can promulgate temporary rules anyways, right?
Right.
No, and here's the thing, so I hear that, and I've written down because I've done a hybrid now of what Matt, lawyer, was saying, and you, is it Clay Rushton? All programming games completed by 9 PM, hard stop, lights dimmed at 9:15, lights off no later than 9:30, so completely off. If not scheduled, then no lighting after dusk. Is that still a provision as well? This notion that if we wouldn't hold the whole place open, or invite people to think that the whole place is open,
Right.
if nobody's scheduled to play.
I agree. I think it's
I agree. Yep.
you know.
Okay.
I think so.
So I have that written down if that is the recommendation of the board. I know you guys can still talk through this, but if that's it, we can, as amended,
Yeah.
put that in there if you want and take it forward.
I do personally still feel very strongly about the enforcement piece of it and what that looks like. I don't know if that can be developed by Public Works and Parks through policy.
If we were a long-standing scheduler, I would think that would be easier. And that's what I was sort of trying to get at is,
Yeah.
because you pick on the person not being able to schedule for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It gets a little bit harder, or at least a little bit less promising, maybe if you work with a contractor, because they're just getting the contract done. You're not always micromanaging that, if that makes sense.
No, but again, but if it's called in, let's say Mr. Brooks calls and says, hey, there's folks here at, 10:15, and regardless of who it is, there's somebody that's gonna be accountable to have a name for that time. And it's still enforceable through the city ordinance, right?
Yeah, but I guess the question would be, do we then be an intermediary and tell the contractor, this group needs to not be scheduled for such and such amount of time? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I mean, I think that would be potentially reasonable, especially if they're routine violators, right? I mean, they're gonna have potential contract, terms and things like that, and if they're a violation of their own contract, then.
yeah.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, I was just wondering if in the RFP, we can add them, ask the people who request these or put these proposals in.
To enforce
have
them.
an enforcement piece in their RFP.
Yes.
Then we don't have to target what the enforcement is, but it would let them have some ownership to the enforcement, and then we can decide and discuss it.
And not to belabor the point, because it's getting bigger and bigger, right? But like the idea of, we can clearly come back and revisit this along the way.
Absolutely.
And I'd be happy to come back and just focus, say, on enforcement piece later on to Mr. Shackelford's point.
Okay.
Right, is start easy and then start building the kingdom.
Okay, so, yeah. Robert, hi, Robert.
Robert's been waiting.
Thank you, Chair Laura. I do have a question, I guess, for clarity about when the lights would be dimmed per the current motion. Was that 9:15 they're dimmed? They go into dim mode at 9:15.
Well, and
what that
and this
means?
is up for their, it's
I
really for them, right?
Totally understand.
Yeah, yeah,
What you said
15,
Actually,
was 9:15, they go into dim mode, so
You know, as I'm thinking about,
Theoretically-
I'm thinking back to my base, I'd almost say right at 9.
Nine.
I'd say right at 9, because that's your immediate cue that, you know what, you got,
It's time to get
And I-
rolling.
what's that?
It's time to get rolling out
Yeah.
of the park.
I got 30 minutes to get out.
thank you for the clarity.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you for, yeah.
I imagine there'll be signage and all this once this is, so the general public knows what time the park,
Yeah, I mean,
the
it'd be
lights
great.
will be off.
It'd be great regardless of whether the city's doing it or something. It'd be super cool if there was a schedule that could be posted somewhere online. So it's predictable for these folks out here to know when they can expect to close the curtains. Not that that's the solution. I'm not trying to be flippant about it, but I think just to have some transparency and when the fields are gonna be reserved in the evening would be really cool.
I think that's really reasonable.
Yeah. Okay, so all the things that Mr. Lindsay has, we're gonna call that potential motion on the table. Who would like to make that as a recommendation to city council for the amendment to the rules? Do you want to restate those, please,
Yeah,
for
I
the
don't-
record, Mr. Lindsay? That way we have it very clear, and then,
Certainly. So this would be the artificial lighting section of the, you had it on page 28, right? 5B. And it says artificial turf fields will close, the lights will be off at 10 PM currently. What it will say is artificial turf fields will close, all programming and games will be completed by 9 PM. Lights will be dimmed at 9 PM. Lights will be off no later than 9:30 PM on that line. And we can add one subsection that says, if not scheduled, then no lighting will occur after dusk.
Can we add to that about amplified noise?
As the currently stated in another
Amplified
section.
noise says 9.
It's
In
9,
here
yeah.
for the amphitheater, but I didn't know if it's for all of Keizer Rapids.
Yeah, well, and what it says is, there's a couple of interesting provisions
Yeah.
about 2 hours after sundown for the boat ramp.
But that's people using the boat ramp because of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
hunters and the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
fishers that do that.
Well, and so but all amplified sound shall completely cease by 9 PM unless permitted. So,
Okay.
so then what you can
Perfect.
do is, if you're gonna amplify after that for a special occasion or something, you have to come and either ask the council to,
which
you
they
know,
would have to
suspend
do
the
anyways
rule
to extend the
itself.
lights beyond 9.
Gotta get permitted.
Yeah, or get a permit.
Well, I move what City Attorney Lindsay said.
Is there a second?
And all the other current, because there are the other little changes that
Yeah.
allow for the exclusive use in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? It's the last chance. All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. And I, again, want to reiterate, thank you so much for being here. Keep in contact. This meeting is always a good forum to come and tell us how things are going. Please, Mr. Johnson, make sure that these guys are aware when it goes to city council for consideration, please.
And it,
Did I just say Johnson?
yeah, that's okay.
God.
He's looking
I looked at Robert and went over here. Just kidding, April Fools.
For sure, and the way we've noticed this too was anybody who had signed up online as an interested person for the parks,
Yep.
we also sent it to all of the neighborhood associations.
Perfect.
And then, let it be known now too, that, it'll be coming to a meeting near you, probably the first one in September, so that's September 3rd, the day after Labor Day, is when, city council will hear it.
Perfect.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you all for being here again. You're welcome to stay and hear all the wonderful additional work we have going on. But if you don't want to, totally understand. All right, let's go into parks reports. Mr. Pantalone.
Both parks, Northview Park and Country Glen, are both in very good shape. Didn't really notice any vandalism or graffiti. And they look good. The one thing was my granddaughter wanted me to pass on Country Glen, the path that goes along the creek over there, the blacktop. She said it has a bump that makes it really harder for her to ride her scooter.
Oh, jeez.
And she'd like you to level out that side if you could.
Get right on it.
We had that repaved about, I think it was 2 years ago.
Right.
And there's a row of cottonwood trees there that are just
The
completely
roots.
creating havoc.
Right.
And I had some cut down to help with that, but they still are just causing us some problems. But I will take a look at it.
She has a smooth ride except for that one spot
One
across
little
the
bump.
back.
Tell her that's the trick spot. It's where you're supposed to do tricks.
Tell you what, I'll give
Thank
you
you.
a compact
Thank you.
and have her just beat it down.
There you go.
That's it?
That's it.
Mr. Russian, Baron Chalmers Jones.
Bear Park looks amazing. There's still those stumps there, though. What are those gonna be?
Bear Park
There's
stumps.
looks like somebody's made a pathway to the old vehicle. It's like they cut tree stumps and lined them. I don't know if you guys did that or. if
No,
kids
we had
decided
some
to get
tree work
creative.
done there and, some of the chunks were left behind because it costs a lot of money to make those go away. And a lot of times neighbors come gather those up.
Okay, cool.
But this time it didn't happen, so maybe we need to haul them off.
No, that's
We
all
are
fine.
leaving some habitat logs in that park now.
Good. No, that's fine.
Just because that was pointed out that they could be beneficial. So not too many, but a few habitat logs might remain there long-term, logs, not stumps.
And then the skate park, I just took a walk over there this evening. There's a enormous tree branch that a skater decided to go around and threaten other people with in a friendly kind of threaten. So I asked him to put it down and told him we'd probably remove it the next day or two.
Okay. Thank you.
Friendly threatening?
Hey, he was, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's dead.
Wow.
Everybody was still there.
Bob, tell us about Meadows and Bob Newton.
Meadows looks awesome. Bob Newton looks great. The graffiti's been cleaned up quite a bit. I had one of the neighbors call me a couple days ago and made comment that the pickleball people, when they fill up the parking lot, are starting to park in the alley. And he's got an RV that he pulls in behind his property and wouldn't be able to get it in or out if he needed to. So he just told me to bring that to your attention. So, I mean, he showed me a picture of it when I met him, and I think he could have got by, but he made a good point, you know. I mean, it's most people don't even know it's there, so let alone, you know, one of the neighbors, but he uses it for his RV and stuff to get in on the back of his property, so.
I love your can-do attitude, Bob.
Well, say the way it is.
We've had fun with Bob Newton throwing stumps around after the ice storm. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Pulled some good wood out of it.
Ben Miller, looks pretty great. I was there, it's been a little over a week ago now, and I haven't gone by Mike Whittam. I'm not gonna lie. This last week was crazy. I'll check it out. Things are growing, people are happy, squirrels are singing.
Yeah, Mike Whittam's looking good. I do plan on having the inmate crew come in there, probably next week and help clear the hillside behind the houses. That's a request that a lot of the neighbors make every year, so we've been doing a routine there. We do have an inmate crew that comes in and does some work in town, a lot of which is in our, along creeks and some of the drainage ditches. And so, we've kind of,
That's Roy, right? Has been helping with that? No?
Roy.
He's the guy that's always planting stuff with Jenny.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But he's not on the inmate crew, but yes.
Okay.
Anyways, so yeah, they'll be doing some work at Mike Whittam on the hillside probably next week, one day.
Cool. No, nobody wants to. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say something about Palmacy, even though it's
Oh,
not my
Palmacy?
mom. Yes.
Oh.
So I was
Next
at.
week. Next month.
No, because it's the Parks Tour, so I don't get to talk at the Parks Tour. I have to be quiet, which is a problem for me.
I know.
Do we have a hard stop at 7:30?
So anyway, Paul Messia, besides, being snubbed by Parks staff today, is Austin done all of that, all the work that's been done, or are there other wonderful people that I should mention by name?
I believe it's all Austin.
Okay, well, Austin is spectacular. I would like to adopt him if he has, he just seems like a wonderful young man. But now, not only is there the jute cloth, but there are those, I don't know how to describe the great big, they're like chips wrapped up around that keep stuff.
Oh, rip-rap?
Well,
Straw wattles.
straw wattles.
Straw wattles.
All along the top and the bottom of the jute cloth. It's so great. Like, I would just take a picture, I'm ridiculous. But I was so excited to see all the stuff that they've done on that path in Paul Messia. It's spectacular. So, thank you. It's wonderful.
That means you don't get to talk about Keizer Rapids now, right?
I can still do what I want.
Anything on Keizer Rapids? Mr. Stitt?
Thank you. So I'll keep this brief, but for context, just this past Sunday, I realized I hadn't been to every single park in the city, and I feel like maybe I should if I'm in this new position. So what I did is I went on a bike ride to every single park in Keizer. It ended up taking 4 hours, and I covered 16 miles, but it was very fun. So along the way, I stopped at Keizer Rapids. I also took notes at every single park in case we needed more. But for Keizer Rapids specifically, Sunday, I thought it was very active. I saw tons and tons of people using it, so that's wonderful. Many people were playing in the Willamette. That was very nice to see, and the shore was also very populated, for lack of a better word. And then Frisbee golf was also very popular. I saw many people using that, and the parking lot was mostly full. So that's all I have.
You caught the tail end of Keizer Fest, probably.
No, not quite. I mean, I thought, yeah, I got maybe. I don't remember really exactly, but. Yeah.
Any major, anything else on Keizer Rapids? No?
How's the barbecue pits? Had any issues with that?
Oh, yeah.
Is that an ongoing thing, or?
So we put up no fire signs in various areas of all of the parks, and it seems that since we've done that, the danger has gone down drastically. But that's just our observation. We don't see everything always.
All right. Do we have anything else on turf field update? I think that was kind of covered, but it's on here as number 5, so.
Yeah, I can just go into that a little bit. The majority of the project, the construction is about done. We are going to see some pavers move in this week, towards the end of the week, and pave. The gravel parking lot is staying gravel, but we have to provide some ADA parking stalls, so they're gonna be in there doing some paving for those, as well as the exiting driveway that does not exist will need to be paved, that approach. So that'll be one of the last large things to take place down there. And then there's still a large pile of dirt that needs to get moved, and that will be moved over into the swale area, kind of just behind where Keizer Fest was at, in the very near future.
Okay. Anything to add, Mr. Lindsay?
Just that we're, working internally, and then we will be very out in front of things in the coming council meetings about the status of trying to figure out how to either get a management group in there and or what the city's going to do in the Band-Aid zone in the middle run. So
Robert, I just thought of something. Last Parks meeting, we talked about removal of the fountain. There's no big historical thing. We're not gonna get okay, so we're good.
We're good.
We need to get that plan then, to get that fountain taken out.
Well, let's make sure the funding
Got it.
is found, and then we will remove the fountain. I do have one more update on, the pickleball courts real quick.
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
please.
Thank you, Chair. So construction of the pickleball courts has been going pretty quick. I don't know if anybody's been down there. I know Clay's been down there. The concrete, slabs have been poured. There's 2 slabs side by side. They will have a connector piece poured here very soon. It's a post-tension slab, so it has cables running through it. They're in the process of tightening those cables down right now, which will keep that slab ultimately from cracking long-term. So that'll be great. It is on schedule to be completed by the end of September. So we anticipate, if everything goes as planned, that those courts will be open sometime in October to the general public for usage. So we're excited about that, because that's been something that a lot of people have been requesting for quite a while now. So we're very excited to have that project completed and watch some folks go down there and play pickleball. Thank you.
Councilor
And it
Kohler.
should take some pressure off the other pickleball court that was mentioned, where we're having an overflow of parking taking place into an alleyway.
Nice. Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Chair Lawyer. I have a number of things tonight. First of all, the amount of work that y'all do for all of the 19 parks that we have, thank you. That it doesn't just happen all by itself, and I appreciate the work that you do. There's been an application for a Community Prosperity Initiative grant from the county, and in doing that, it has been earmarked that we look at doing a pavilion out at the Keizer Rapids Park. And I have a meeting with county commissioners next week, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about that. But one of the things that I'm noticing is that we're looking at probably like 100 by 250 foot pavilion. Will serve all kinds of different things, community events, recreational activities, educational programs, culture events, community meetings, to become an outdoor shelter, emergency management area, for youth and community programs, and all kinds of Keizer resident events, and some big thing called Keizer something. Keizer, thanks Bob for putting that all out there, Keizer Fest. So that's one of those things that it's in the master plan, mentioned in the master plan. The project itself isn't in the plan at this point, but that's something we need to be talking about probably in the near future. If we were to get that grant, that's probably a 5-year procedure to actually get it built, totally built out. But that's something that we'll probably, if we start with the grant, we'll have some SDC funds, some ARPA funds, State Park and Rex funds, grant, and some other things too. So kind of excited about seeing some of that worked out. And the second thing, which is just a fun thing, on September 7th, there's a little group that's going to be spending a little bit of time at Wallace House Park. And so we invite everybody that would like to come, and this is part of the National Day of Service in commemoration of September 11th. And it'll be, again, at the Wallace House Park. We're gonna be moving some trees that are across trails. We'll be cutting ivy, be doing a whole bunch of planting, putting, is it bark or wood chips on trails? And doing some other sculpting activities. It should be a lot of fun. That's 9 o'clock, September 7th. Our chair lawyer has consented to be a gator jockey and help with some of that. So really looking forward to that. So September 7th, 9 o'clock, probably will last 3 hours, and we'll have food. Adam's Ribs bringing food. So,
Gotta beware of those Keizer or Wallace House Park alligators. They're quite scary.
yes,
Um,
we could have
see you
two
later.
alligators there, so.
No, yeah. So Parks Tour, we have that coming up. I'm gonna throw a couple ideas out. You guys see what you think. There's a little bit of development happening at Keizer Rapids, so I would suggest we choose that. Considering the memorial, I would also say maybe we go to RJ or Ryan J. Hill Park, just so the council can get eyes on that. It's been, since 2018, since the last time we were there. And it's been 4 years since we've been to Little League Fields, and I would suggest that we also consider going there. What do we think?
Sounds like a good one.
How many parks are you planning on going to see?
Well, I think we'll do, because there's, with the volume of development at Keizer Rapids, I think we're probably gonna spend a fair amount of time there. You know, we got the new, picnic shelters. I mean, there's been a bunch of stuff that some folks haven't probably seen for a while, so.
And typically we do 3, right?
Yeah, 3 or 4, just kind of depending. Yeah, it looks like 3. Now, it's always been, we don't need to do this by motion, right? We can just say this is what we want to do, or by consensus. Okay. What's that? It's September 9th, I believe, right? It's whatever the council meeting, we're gonna cancel our September meeting, which I think is like the 12th or the 9th or whatever it is.
Yeah,
then-
Monday, September 9th.
Yeah, Monday, September 9th, so, because we canceled our September 10th meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody good on those parks? So I have one more unofficial order of business. If you don't know, yesterday was Robert Johnson's birthday.
What?
And I've learned in my life that the best way to keep friends and make sure they stay your friends is to embarrass them publicly as much as humanly
Yes.
possible. And so I brought cupcakes for Robert.
Happy birthday, Robert.
Thank you. It's
And,
it's a big one too.
This is your birthday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
30?
Robert's 30.
There you go.
So, we got cupcakes here, and since you're the birthday gentleman, we'll, hand these down here, and I think we'll spare the singing. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know.
Thank you.
This is being recorded. We should sing.
Speech.
I agree.
No speech. Thank you. I appreciate it. The
Now,
recognition.
what this shows is I probably don't know how to do math, so, I grabbed the only box of cupcakes that I saw, so.
I'm going to tell a quick story.
Okay.
Yesterday, a really good friend of mine, like he's like a brother to me, as a gag gift, sent a dozen red roses all decked out to the front desk of City Hall, and they all called me and said, "You have a flower bouquet here." And I'm like, "Did my wife buy me flowers?" I go in there, and a buddy did it.
I
So
would've
it
thought
was
of it.
rather hilarious.
Yes.
Well, Robert, seriously, I know we all appreciate you. We all appreciate the work you do, and,
Absolutely.
welcome to the Old Guy Club.
Yeah, thank you.
It's awesome. So, happy birthday. And without any further ado, who wants to do the council report?
I can do it.
We need to get somebody else to do it.
I know. I can be the backup.
David, you want to do it? Sure. Great. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, and actually, I'm sorry, one last thing. Mr. Lindsay, thank you for being here. This is the first time
Yes.
you've been with the Parks Board. If you don't know, this is our new city attorney, Mr. Johnson left, and is retired and gone and, I don't know, whatever Shannon Johnson does when he's bored and, I don't know. Probably watching Law and Order and going, that's not right, but,
I think he's traveling a little bit. I think his one daughter just had a baby.
oh, perfect.
I think that happened.
Very good.
So, and he plays with his, Ben's here, and he plays with those guys all the time, the kids from his son, so.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for being here. And again, just a big shout out to West Keizer Neighborhood for being here tonight. And we will stand adjourned at 7:30. Have a great evening.